Hello, I'm Edwina Blackburn at the Australian Institute of International Affairs National Office. I'm joined today with Mr. Harold Weldon, founder of Weldon Global, a long-standing China advisory operation, a board member of the Australian China Council, and he hosted and convened the Australian China Digital Media Leaders Roundtable in 2015 and 2016. Thank you for joining me.
Pleasure.
You have a long affiliation with China and its relationship with Australia. Following the 2016 Free Trade Agreement, are we seeing any change in Chinese domestic policy?
Well, it's interesting because I guess on an official level, the benchmark is seen as the 2016 signing. But in some ways, today's world perception is as powerful, if not more. And I think it was really starting more after the 2014 visit of President Xi Jinping. You might recall he went to Canberra, then went on down to Tasmania famously. So I think the perception was changing there for the Chinese people to see the president there, and they had an incredible visit, and they came back with huge, amazing reports of the produce and the wealth of, especially of Tasmania. But it also was that spirit, and of course the lead up to the signing. So I think that there was a shift, but it wasn't really to the letter the day after the signing. It's been actually an amazing long process over years. Yeah.
Well, following that, has it had any impact on Sino-Australian relations in any way?
Yes, it has. In a technical aspect, the free trade, as you know, it's the lowering of tariffs and trade barriers and incredible details that actually it's taken generations across both sides of government, probably 20 or 30 years of negotiation, but really just the idea that is being concluded from a perception point of view. I think I've certainly found it in my experience that there's, can I say, a much more relaxed approach to meetings in a lot of ways, because everyone feels relaxed that the leadership are on side. It doesn't mean that you don't have hard negotiations, but there's a feeling of all being the same common goal, as they like to say in China.
Historically, Australia has exported mainly coal and iron ore to. Has there been any shift in exports or imports on either side following this agreement?
Well, like anyone, we can all look up the Bureau of Statistics. I'm certainly finding the big rapid developer is the tourism numbers, and often they're combined sometimes with you call tourism education. In some ways, the education numbers are separate to the pure Chinese tourists. Probably they're still a bit behind coal, but they're going to overtake coal. I think the standout is always iron ore. I think it was around the 40 billion in last year's figure. Having recently had meetings with Australian tourism and seeing the opening up, for an example, of another 8 new Chinese carriers, that number could well will overtake coal. It may have already, and all of the aspirational areas that I've been working in these areas since the mid-80s, but now it's coming through all of those services areas, and especially in training, service training. These are things that are really starting to blossom. But I'd say especially China tourism is the huge number that will come. Yeah.
So important trade-focused talks between Australia and the US have taken place recently. Has there been any change in Chinese-Australian relations or even just policy since then?
I don't think officially there has, no. It's still business as usual, on the ground. My perspective is very much as a private business person over the years at the negotiating table, deal to deal. But probably in the think tanks and the discussions, you can see some may think there's perhaps some kind of opportunity or a bit of leeway for Australia because of a perceived challenges in the America relationship. But that takes a long way to come down to the ground. But I'm always a proud Australian over there, and any Australian that does business in China, you really represent your country, you really feel it, and we just have such a great relationship, I believe, despite the odd political thing. So I think we've just got to concentrate on our own pathway and it'll look after itself.
Thank you very much for that.
No
If
worries.
you want to know anything else about China's foreign policy or even the Sino-Australian relationship, visit us at www.internationalaffairs.org or follow us on Twitter or Facebook.